this is Stephen Gedge, rather than the Stephen Gedge that everyone thinks you are, which is a very enclosed individual.
Really?
Well, no one said that to me, but I did, and then I got to know you. So if I did, what's everyone else thinking?
That's interesting, actually, isn't it? I wonder why that perception exists, because I don't view myself as being an enclosed person. And like you, we've known each other a few years now, those people that I've worked with over time have had that same perception early on, and I don't know where that comes from. I don't know why that exists, because I don't believe that I portray that.
It's interesting, right? That like people's perceptions, and I'm gonna in these morning what have we called it?
Mindset
Rachel?
moments.
Mindset moments, beach mindset moments, right? I'm gonna say something about this, and the mindset moments at the beach, as no doubt you've seen on LinkedIn and all the other social channels, they're about being raw, right? And they're not planned, they're not scripted, they're just whatever is on my mind, which is alarming sometimes, right? And people's perception of anyone can be whatever their perception is. I'll give you an example. The way that I look, right? I can't help the way that I look.
What would you change?
No, I wouldn't change anything. Right? But if I walk into a gym that no one knows me, no one speaks to me, and when I get to know someone, the first thing they say to me is, "Oh, I thought you was like, you know, some meathead who, you know, you look very angry." I'm like, that's just my natural face. Like my natural face is, I don't know, when I'm concentrating on something, maybe I look angry, and then you would look at me like that and go, yeah, where's my wallet? Where's my phone? You know, and that's because of your perception to the outside world. And I think my perception of you was not like that, right? But my perception of you was, you know, you're a very high up senior individual. And put it this way, first time I called you, I thought to myself, my game has got to be absolutely right for this.
Wow.
And I shouldn't have thought that.
No, you've got to
not that time.
Well, you've got to be yourself, haven't you? It's interesting actually, because you might have noticed that my hair's gone a little grey.
I didn't notice.
No, it has.
No.
It has. Yeah, it might be the lighting in here, but it has.
Same as mine.
And it went early, and I kind of liked it. And then in the end, I've joked now that that's worth 50 grand, right? Because it makes you look like this worldly wise, sophisticated, urbane chap that's been around and has seen it. And even when I was, you know, in my early 40s, it was still pretty great. And I kind of embraced that. So you're right, it's perception, right? You see you, good-looking guy, built, muscular,
thank you
strong.
very much.
You
He can come back. We can come back tomorrow.
But you see me, as you saw me, as you know, this older guy that's been around, and he's clearly in command of his remit.
Yeah.
They're just perceptions, right?
Do you remember the first time we ever met?
Yeah, in a coffee shop. Right?
Yeah. So we met in Mayfair somewhere or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I came away from that meeting thinking, what a lovely bloke, and totally not what I thought.
True.
But we would.
I am a lovely bloke.
You are a lovely bloke. You are a lovely bloke, and like just a normal individual. And but you know what? I came back and I actually said this to a number of people who you know as well, right? What I came away from noticing the most about you was how you dressed when you met me. You looked very clean. And the one thing that I came away from was thinking, I want Stephen Gedge's nails. Honestly, like your nails are all manicured, right? I'm sure you get manicures and stuff like that. And that was what I noticed. Very, very interesting, isn't it?
So I was clean, and I had good nails.
No, you dressed very nice. You had very nice cufflinks on, and and I came away thinking, how do I get Stephen Gedge's nails? Honestly, that's what I thought. Big impact. Anyway, this is actually
not my towering in intellect. It was you want my nails, but okay,
it was.
I'll take it.
So thanks for coming in. Anyway, Stephen, I really appreciate it, and I obviously know you as from being in the Workday ecosystem for a number of years. We've known each other for a number of years, and we've obviously worked together on a few projects. So I wanted to find out a bit more about what makes you tick, right? So, at what point during your career did you think I'm going to go and run projects? Tell me a bit about your background and kind of how it all.
Sure. Interesting, actually. So my background was software development. So my degree was in mathematics, and I joined a consultancy early on. I've been an independent contractor for 25 plus years. So I've always thought of myself as running my own business, not on the grand scale of what you guys are doing, but I ran it as a business, and therefore I felt that I had to offer a business solution to my clients. Now, in the early days, that was programming and software development, etc. But what I was always quite good at was articulating solutions in business terms. I was quite techie, but I was able to relay that into business leaders' mindset and terminology, and therefore problem solving for them. So and I enjoyed that, and that kind of gave me a bit of a unique selling point. You know, there were hundreds of computer programmers, as we used to be called, and then and then there were analysts, and I kind of traversed those two fields. And because the business areas that I was working in tended to be HR and people-led, that articulation of solutions in terms of business process and what it meant for people, etc., that kind of drove me into that pathway. Then I was fortunate. I was in a very big global investment bank, which is no longer around, and they were deploying PeopleSoft as an HR technology on a global scale. And I saw that program being led and managed very well, actually, alongside what I was doing. And occasionally there would be a handoff between information, what I would provide and what they needed. And I saw that as being, actually, this is a really good area for me to start to get into. And so I kind of drifted into that. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but the advances in Web3, AI, machine learning and all of this, I see that as being a cyclical event. So, for example, when I was starting my career, talking about technology in terms that a business leader, whether he be an HR person or a salesperson or a finance person, talking to them in their language was a real skill. And we're seeing now with, take ChatGPT, for example, if you can educate a business manager in how to make use of chat and Claude and all of these AI type scenarios, you're going to get great advantage. So I see it as being the conduit between the tech and the business, and that's really where I started to grow into my career.
Yeah. So you was originally a programmer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I could be careful how I say this. Typically, when you get programmers and technical consultants, they don't tend to have the personality to go with it. They're very, very techie, absolutely superb with anything technical on any product. They can work it out, but actually translating what they're trying to do to someone who's not techie is a real struggle. And the ones in the ecosystems that we operate in, the ones that have got that ability to be able to translate that to anyone, are the ones that get paid the most, as you know. But it's interesting that you've obviously got a great personality. I never would have said technical background.
No, that's right. Actually, I hear that a little bit. And I guess it's just the way your mind works, isn't it? I got the tech. I guess that's because my maths background. I got it. I understood it. I like the logic and the beauty of it. But I also I describe myself as a bit of a fake extrovert. My natural nature, I think, is to be a little more reserved. But I force myself to engage with people, and I get a lot of benefit and a lot of positive vibe back from that. Yeah. And through that, I'm able to bridge both camps, shall we say?
Yeah, I'm an introvert too.
I know.
I'm definitely not an introvert. So you've done this you done this first PeopleSoft implementation, and you operate as a project manager on that project.
Well, actually, I was still quite technical in that space. I was building out. Can you believe this? To show how far technology's come these days, I was building the compensation system for a global investment bank from scratch to feed information into PeopleSoft.
Wow.
We ran that for 4 or 5 years, and this was in, let's call it casino banking days, beginning of the 21st century.
Yeah.
Bonus numbers, which are, even today, are still eye-watering.
Yeah.
And management of that cycle, all of that we built from scratch because there wasn't the technologies in the ERPs to be able to do it to the standard and the level and the sophistication that an investment bank in those days needed.
Wow.
Now, of course, it's all part of advanced comp in all of the ERP systems that we play with.
Yeah.
But those days it was bespoke from scratch.
Wow. So can you still do all that stuff?
Languages move on, right? So Python and all the rest of it these days I'm not familiar with. But the concepts around moving numbers around, moving data around, etc. Yeah, of course. What I think is really interesting nowadays is the shift, if you like, from number crunching, which IT was good at. It's now more text-based. And the power of that, I think we still don't quite understand. So, you can feed data into ChatGPT or Claude or what have you, and it then mines billions and billions and billions of documents in the blink of an eye, and turns that into text information and context-sensitive information. That's a difference, I think, that we're seeing now in the advances in technology. And even the likes of the big ERPs that we get involved with, and we've got involved with together, they're seeing that and they're bringing that into their core platform. It's really exciting. And I don't think we yet fully understand, and of course we won't yet, the implications of that and how it will play out.
I was in an event for a vendor the other day, and they were talking about some of the technological advances that they're implementing in their HR and payroll solution, and I was like, wow. Yeah. Okay, really? And you think to yourself, where is this going to go in 10 years though? Because if you can do that now, it's like you're going to be able to go on your phone in 20 years time. It's going to be a little box that sits in your pocket, and you're going to be able to order your shopping, your clothes, your groceries, whatever you want, on this little black box that sits in your pocket. You go, there's no way. And now you see all these advances in the ERP systems, and it's like, wow,
I think the rate of change is accelerating as well. So we've seen that in the last 20 years, internet and all of the rest of it. Pretty rapid, right? But I think the curve is actually steeper now. If you think of what's happened with AI in the last 18 months to 2 years, just unbelievable. I know when Web3 is going to accelerate that too.
Yeah. I haven't really taken too much notice of AI, if I'm honest, until recently. And I'm like, wow, you can actually do that with AI. As an individual. But I think one of our next brands will be focusing on artificial intelligence and RPA, which is obviously the next biggest thing. So we are looking at things like that. So going back to your career, when did you think to yourself, I want to be a PM? Because you obviously started as a PM first, and then got bigger programs and ended up where you are today.
Yeah, I talked a good game earlier on, and I persuaded people that I was capable of managing teams, etc. So I grew through evolution. I didn't go on a course and come out the other side a PM. It was an evolution, and I think for me that was helpful because I learned through my own mistakes, and we all know that's a very powerful way of learning. It gets embedded deeply into your psyche, doesn't it? Yeah. And credit to the organisations that trusted me to do that. Mistakes along the way, but it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think to my credit, I built teams that were strong, capable, supportive, ambitious, and I mean, to this day, there are a number of people that I like to take with me on projects that I trust and are highly capable, and their careers are developed too. And you know this, right, through your business. You build out a team, you lean on that team, they grow, you grow. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's to me the best way of evolving.
Mm-hmm. There's a story about the young man sitting in the room, actually. He. No. I would like what this part is going to be sat in, because you're talking about, you know, taking people with you in the journey and stuff like that. So, the story behind Ryan, right, is that Ryan came into our first office about 7.5 years ago. So the company was just started, and we had probably 4 contractors.
It'll be 7 years in October.
At the time, yeah. So he came in 7.5 years ago, and he came in, and his background was working, stacking shelves at Waitrose, and he came in for a recruitment job. Right, so I just started this business, and I was very like, gotta make this business work, and like, same way I am now, but in a different way then. Like, I don't want to go bankrupt in that sort of way, whereas it's different now. But so you got this guy, a really, really nice guy, comes into the office and says he wants a job as a recruiter. And I don't know whether I laughed in his face or anything. I don't think I did, actually. You'd have to ask him.
No.
You're not a rude man.
No, I'm not a rude man. I'm not rude even when I want to be rude, if I'm honest. But what I said to him was, you would get eaten alive on the phones. You're just too much of a nice guy, right? But how about doing some marketing? Do you want to do some marketing, like social media and stuff? He goes, well, I'll give it a go. I was like, okay, cool. And now, seven years later, he's our marketing manager.
Fantastic.
And he's really good. You know, so yeah, I understand the value of taking people with you and helping people to grow and trusting those people forward. So
I also see that now as part of my responsibility, right? So I've had a career of some years. I've got a lot of experience to share with people. This idea of mentoring, guiding, offering advice to people that I've worked with, and also to organisations, that lights me up. Actually, I'm quite into that, and I see it as being a kind of a legacy, if you like. I think it's the Chinese people. They say, like, in your 20s you're learning, in your 30s you're earning, in your 40s you're establishing, and in your 50s you're teaching.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a circular payback.
I wouldn't know that. Yeah.
No, obviously. I'll remind you in a few years.
Remind me in a couple of years. Remind me I said that on camera as well. So, all right. So I know you as as a program director, very, very capable, and you do what we call big stuff, right? So when you go into an organisation who is looking for any ERP or cloud transformation program, what are the transformation initiatives that you, as an individual, would need to get across to those stakeholders that you're engaging with?
Yeah. It's easy to get caught up in the, let's call it the glamour and the excitement of a big program. And if you're an organisation, that gives you a bit of a focus to work on, and we're going to be taking some action. I think it's vital that you understand why you're doing the program. So was it Carl Jung said, if you know the why, you can answer any how. And if you understand the driver behind what it is you're trying to do, you should embed that in your business case. So you're driving customer satisfaction, you're driving costs down, you're improving market share. What is the North Star that you're trying to solve for? It's easy to get to a level down to say, oh, we're going to change our HR system, or we're going to change our finance system, or our procurement system, and the way we do business. We're going to change our operating model. Well, okay, maybe you are, but why are you going to do that? What is it going to give you? The so what? You've got to keep going back to that, even at the early stage of project initiation. You're putting together your business case, you're costing it, you're putting together all the variables that will make it potentially happen, and then you're selling that to the organisation. You've got to be able to tell the story of why are we doing this, what's it for? Because you're going to be spending millions, maybe tens, maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars. You've got to be able to tell that story. And I think it's sometimes overlooked or is sometimes glossed over with we've got to be seen to be doing something. But until you're sure organisationally that you have a business imperative to solve for, don't start. You're not ready. And then once that's going, once you've satisfied that and you have a North Star, you've got to tell everybody what that is. And that will be macro, and it will also be micro as well, and everywhere in between. You've got to be able to have a story that's consistent, stacks up, that everyone can understand why you're doing it and what it means locally, but what it means globally to the organisation as well. It's really important that you can do that. Because if you think, certainly from a multinational perspective, there's going to be local initiatives, local needs, cultural differences, as well as what it is the whole organisation is trying to achieve. If you can tell the story at each level and people can see how it relates to the bigger picture, you get more buy-in, you get more involvement and more interest in what you're trying to achieve.
Do you think that's the reason why, let me rephrase the question. The biggest thing that I hear when working with organisations, global organisations, with, let's say, multiple countries all around the world, is you'll talk to the location, and it might be the program director, or it might be the CHRO or the CFO, whatever, and they're very bought into it because they was part of the RFP process.
Yeah, sure.
They signed it off, right?
Yeah.
But generally, if they're being very open, which 9 times out of 10 they are, is they've got these locations across the world, and a typical comment would be that Belgium or Germany are not bought into doing this project. Do you think that's because they didn't get the initiatives right from the top before of why they're actually doing it, or do you think that it's just cultures, or they like the way they're doing things? What do you think the reason behind it is?
I think this idea that we've always done it this way, I think that's yesterday's story, right? I don't come across many people that are of the mindset, we've always done it this way, therefore not going to change. I don't see that. I think people understand that change is necessary. What you don't always get is the buy-in to the detail of what's happening. Organisations, countries too, they have different legislative profiles, they have different cultural behaviours, they have different market conditions. And I've worked with many of my organisations have been truly global. But there's a world of difference. So if you're running the project out of the UK or you're running out of New York, there's a world of difference in Singapore or in Eastern Europe that doesn't matter or doesn't get to the ears of the people that are running the program, but it's vitally important locally because locally you're supporting your customers, your client base, and you want to do a good job. I think generally people want to do a good job and progress their careers and serve their customers, but that's a million miles away from some decision that's been made in New York or some decision that's been made in London or wherever centrally. So you need to understand and have a network and a pulse on what is happening locally, which is why your local management can be a real benefit, a real boon to the program as a whole. You need to be able to feel the pulse of what's happening locally because, with a small tweak or actually, we're sorry, yeah, we know you do it that way and we know it's important, but the bigger picture is we've got to go this way. So, you so long as you can understand the ask locally and the need locally, you can make decisions about it. You either support it or you don't. But you've got to hear it. One of the things I say to people when they join the team, and I've done this a few times actually, sometimes your team gets 30, 40, 50 people, 100 people big, and you get a new joiner, and they're a little bit cautious to where they sit in this big team. What I say to them is, look, we don't necessarily have to agree, but you do have a voice, And if people are listened to, even if, I heard you, it's a decent argument, but we're going to go this way, they can understand that. But if they're not listened to, then that's what breeds resistance. And I think it's important to hear people, give them a voice.
Do you think that's the reason why you don't get buy-in from certain countries? Because it's a typical comment. It really is. It's not so much that it's the way we've always done it, so we're going to continue. Because some regions have their own MD who's responsible for their own P&L, but they're part of this big large group. And the big large group have decided to change the finance system or the payroll system or the HR system or whatever, and the MD doesn't want to do it. So, but the MD is the main person in that region. So if the MD doesn't want to do it, then the people underneath that MD won't want to do it.
No, you're right.
So do you think it's because that's not been translated properly to the MD?
Well, it's also, do you have a good case? So the why, come back to what I said earlier, if you have the why, you can answer the how. The why we're doing this needs to be articulated clearly, and whether that's aligned to the MD's position in your case, or it's contradictory to it. The why has to be clearly articulated and understood, and then, I'm sorry, country that's not aligned. The bigger picture is we're going this way for the greater organisational good, or greater organisational necessity. So there will invariably be winners and losers in such a scenario. But you've got to be able to articulate, we're doing it, you may not like it, or we're doing it and you do like it, but we're still doing it.
Yeah. So have you ever been on a project where it was really tough? That was really tough. You had, you had senior members of regions where they just didn't want to talk to you because you're the guy sat in London and they're in this region. And how did you deal with it?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because locally, they're running their own business, right? They've got local customers, local markets, local business practices, and maybe they're part of a great mothership that seems remote, etc., etc. If your solution is right for 90% of the organisation, but not right for one particular division, you've got to take a decision. Well, do we localise? Do we have a workaround for this country that we're talking about that's problematic? Or do we actually say, buddy, suck it up. You're part of the bigger organisation and we're going in this direction. There comes a point where there's a decision that has to be made. So coming back to my argument that give the guy a voice, he's being heard. You don't necessarily have to account for every nuance along the way. You can't do that. And especially a global program, you're trying to fit something that's globally consistent. Yes, of course, you have to have harmonisation, localisation, if you like, for specific countries, markets, etc. You do that to the degree that you're comfortable with and that works. But essentially, eventually, there's a bigger decision to be made, right? You're spending potentially hundreds of millions of dollars and you can't account for one particular market. But it's a problem, right? And that's human nature, right? We all want to be serving our customers to the best of our ability. And what's a bigger picture doesn't necessarily fit. It's problematic.
It is, because you always try to keep everyone happy, right? But it's no, it's not. I mean,
it's like running a country, right?
Yeah, I mean, I take my hat off to the people that run their countries. You know, even the people that, you know, there's lots of bad things said about them in the news and all that type of stuff. Through COVID, you know, Boris, wasn't it? Yeah. I'm not politics, as you know, right? So it was Boris, and I thought to myself, that guy has got such a hard job.
Yeah, horrible.
So give him a little bit of space. That's what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking, oh yeah, you got out for a party and stuff. No wonder he did. You know, wouldn't anyone else?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know.
It's really a question of scale too, right? So you see some of take the Scandinavian countries, for example, smaller, more historically harmonised populations. It's when that starts to grow and you get to scale, that's where the problems start to creep in. And if you have a giant organisation, you can't keep everybody happy, right? Yeah. You're a family man, right? You're only as happy as your unhappiest child, aren't you? You kind of like that with a big program.
Yeah. I can. There's two ways I can relate that to. I can relate that to obviously having a company where
sure.
I want 100 people. I want them all to be happy. And we've just seen recently with something that we've done. I can't keep everyone happy, and you just have to go bigger picture. The bigger picture is this, and quite frankly, the company's going to do this. So if you don't like it, there's the door.
But you've given them a voice.
Yes.
That's important. Like I said, we don't have to agree.
Yeah.
But you have a voice.
Yeah.
And I will hear it, or the program will hear it, or the organisation will hear it. Hopefully we can agree.
Yeah.
But you don't always.
And then from a family perspective, I'm quite lucky because my wife takes care of the children like that, to a high percentage, or I'd say emotionally. But you're absolutely right. If you've got an unhappy child, it makes you unhappy. In fact, I remember when my daughter, do you remember I told you about this? My daughter went to a new school and she was having issues. And did that make me unhappy? No, because I protected myself mentally from it. Very similar to when my father died.
Right.
I had to protect myself mentally from not getting down about the fact my dad died. But eventually it comes and bites you in the bum down the line, doesn't it? So you think you're protecting yourself then, but actually 12 months later you're gonna explode, which is what happened with my daughter. So I put up with the issues that she was having for 12 months, and then I exploded at the end in the school. No. Yeah, I think you can get that. You can get that in many aspects of life, right? So as another thing I wanted to ask you as well, as someone who runs these multiple programs, and I have asked you this before, right? You run all these multiple programs, they're worth millions of dollars each one, and your emails must be going absolutely potty. How do you look after yourself and your mindset when it's really coming under it for you?
Yeah, I've been in that situation a few times actually. Well, like I said earlier, I tend to surround myself by good people. That's really helpful. Eventually, there's a decision to be made, and sometimes it's mine. I'm quite good at switching off. I've always been that way, and I don't know why that is, but I've been able to compartmentalise. That's work, and that's work's issues, and then I go home in the evening, and it's there, but it's not a problem for me. I don't know why that is. It's helpful to be able to have people that you can lean on and trust, and I think, and you've done that with your team, right? And the guys that I know, and it's evident from this floor here of people with their heads down doing the stuff and doing it in a responsible way. That's hugely beneficial. You can't do it all on your own. No. The guy I worked with at the Swiss bank when PeopleSoft was there, he was a bit younger than me actually, but he was dead smart in the way in which he hired people, empowered them, leaned on them, stood up for them, but stood up to them as well. And he was very successful, and I always think back to how he trusted the people that he hired the best he could get. He engendered, I guess through that behaviour, a team of people that were there to support him and make him look good. And we all succeeded together. That's a good lesson for me actually. I use that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can relate that to my own personal situation now with a lot of the social media stuff I'm beginning to do. I don't do that. Yes, I take the videos in the morning and all that sort of stuff, but most of the stuff that's put together that makes me look really good, the guys in marketing do that.
Yeah, somebody's skill, but it's not your skill, right? Your skill is in the orchestration and the direction of the organisation, clearly. Yes. But you surrounded yourself by smart people that can put those bits and pieces together, those nuggets together, and make it into a book or a story or a video or a podcast, right? That's your skill.
My thing is, I surround myself with people who are smarter than I am.
Yeah.
In their areas.
Why wouldn't you?
So, and then I just lean on those people.
Yeah.
And if you can get like you've already said, if you can get trust with those individuals, those certain individuals, then I know that marketing's taken care of. I know that HR's taken care of, and all the other areas. I haven't got to worry about any of those areas. But you just kind of architect it from the top, don't you? Which I guess is a lot to do with what you do, right? So, what would you say your biggest successes are to date, and also your biggest points of learning? I never say failure, as you probably know. So, your improvement points.
Yeah, success. I mean, I've run, I don't know, half a dozen large-scale global programs, some of which I've initiated from the outset. So I'm the architect of business case, technology selection, partner selection, team build, deploy, off into it becoming BAU. Beautiful. We all love those projects, right? Where you design it all from the outset and you take the whole team with you. Fantastic. But I've also been parachuted into programs that are struggling. That's really good for your ego, right? If you can turn around a program that's spent some money, spun its wheels, isn't really going anywhere, you can turn around that and make it a success. I think there's more value to me as a person through being able to do that, because you're starting from a shaky platform. Now, if you go from a greenfield site end to end, you are the owner of all the decisions that got you to it. So you're relying on that for yourself. But stepping into a program that's underway, it's spent a lot of money. You've also lost a lot of the confidence and the buy-in and the support of your stakeholders, your steerco and your executives, for example. Well, who are you, guy, coming in to take this over and think you're going to do better than the last people that did it? Why would I trust you? So you're on the back foot from the outset. I like to be able to do that. So I've done that a couple of times. I see that as being probably my most successful gigs so far.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It tells me a lot about your mindset at this. Okay. And then biggest learns, biggest improvement points, if you like.
Yeah. I think you've got to back yourself, and there's been a couple of times where I really up against it. Significant separation of two organisations with TSAs involved and lots of money involved, etc. And it all hinged on my program. There were a couple of points in that program that I thought, I'm not sure about this. I didn't have the answer. I didn't know the solution, and I doubted myself a couple of times, and I shouldn't have done, because I was with a good team. We had all of the decision making capability and control within our team. So it's down to us to work through it, break it down, solve one little problem at a time. Your horizon becomes very short. The next couple of hours we're doing this, then we're doing this, then we're doing that. And I wobbled a bit there, which I shouldn't have. So good learning there, right? Back yourself. If you've got the experience and the team around you, back yourself.
Yeah. Shows you're vulnerable, right?
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, you don't hear that too many times, do you?
No, you don't. But actually, when you think someone's unbreakable, it can also come across like you don't care. Do you know what I mean? So seeing someone actually cares, and they are questioning themselves because they're in a very high pressure situation, and you can handle the pressure, right? I've never spoken to you, and you have never. I mean, we're what I call friends now, right? So you've never said to me, "Oh, it's too much" or anything like that. But it's interesting that you say that there's been scenarios where you've doubted yourself.
Yeah.
There's been loads of scenarios when I've doubted myself. Loads. And you do. I don't know whether you've ever done this, but I've never questioned whether I'm good enough to do what we're currently doing. But I have thought to myself, you could have done that better.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't think that not capable of doing it. It's either a time constraint or a money constraint, or there are decisions outside of my control. And then invariably in that scenario, there are things you can do well, things you can do extremely well, and things you can do less well. So yeah, that's an area. But you've got to take a punt and give it a go, right?
Yeah.
And you learn from that.
Yeah.
But I'm also more aware these days of not everybody wants to smash it out of the park all of the time, and some people will say it's too much for me.
Yeah.
And that's okay, right? Because
there's
a role for them up to that point. Beyond that, they don't want to go, or they recognise that they're not capable of going. But then you can leave them where they are, or maybe they move on the organisation. I had that on a recent programme. A guy actually was highly capable, but I pushed him because he was capable. And got to a point he said, I can't do it anymore, I'm overwhelmed. And okay, fair enough. We decided to part company, but he could have carried on doing what he was doing, and we kind of reached where he was at. That's okay.
At least he knows.
Yeah.
At least he knows. So next time that comes around, he'll think back to that conversation that he had with you and go, no, I can do this. Yeah. And he'll push himself that bit further.
Maybe.
I'm not known for pushing people in the organisation at all. Yeah, but you do it because it's the right thing to do, right?
Well, you do it to yourself as well, right? I've known you a few years, and you've gone bang, 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 and there's always the next thing. I mean, we spoke earlier, right? You're going to get into AI and predictives and all of that kind of stuff potentially, right? Well, how many focus companies are there now, right? Half a dozen.
9. Yeah, but that's kind of like when you launch a new brand, that's the easy part.
Oh yeah.
If I'm honest. It is. For us, we've launched so many brands,
we've got a copybook,
and we've got so many great customers. Yeah. All that we need to do is to launch a new brand and bolt that onto the existing client base, and then make the customer aware that we've got this new brand that can help you in whatever it's going to be. So we're going to do Oracle applications, and we're going to do AI and RPA, and that's easy. The hard part, where you push yourself, is the vulnerability side. If you ask me, this is just my personal opinion, right? It's when you really don't want to do it, and you have to do it, and you push yourself to do it, and then you finally come out the other end. But when you're in the midst of it, as I'm sure you've experienced with many of your projects, you're right in the trenches, and you're going. It's almost like you're in a war. It's the best thing I've got right now, to be honest. You're in a war, and there's all the soldiers are firing at you from both sides, and you're just going, but you end up getting to the end of where you're going, and you come out the other end, and you go, thank God I didn't turn back, because if I'd have turned back then, when it got really hard, then we wouldn't be back. We won't be where we are now. So very similar to programs, I would have thought,
Yeah. But if you, I always come back to this, right? If you can articulate why you're doing it, how you do it, you can always solve it. Get enough people, smart people around you with the right investment, right capabilities, you get it.
For sure. Okay. What emerging trends do you foresee in the realm of transformation, workday transformation, and other technologies in the coming years?
Yeah. So I think blockchain is going to be particularly significant. So people think of blockchain as cryptocurrency, etc., but it is actually a vehicle of secure contract ownership. It drives ownership. So Web 3, Web 1, read, Web 2, read, write, Web 3, read, write, and own. That ownership piece in a secure and uncorruptible manner, I think, is going to be highly important. So if you think about that in terms of, concert ticket sales, Beyonce's doing a concert, everyone wants to buy the tickets. There's a black market, grey market, after sales market for those tickets. With something like blockchain, you can, and they're probably doing this already actually, you can securely, safely identify ownership and that so your ownership of your concert ticket, for example, and it's then yours to trade and do with as you will. I think that's going to be particularly important as AI develops, as predictive analytics develop, etc. I think that secure ownership of an asset, digital asset, is going to be really significant. The reason we capture all of this data, so whether it's an HR program, a finance program, procurement, and regardless of the technology, Oracle, SuccessFactors, or any of them, Workday, we capture masses and masses and masses of information. When you create a new hire record in any of these ERPs, the amount of data that you capture is really vast, and you enrich that over time, so people's skills and aptitudes and their goals, etc., are all added in. We capture all this information. Why do we do that? So we can make decisions on it, right? We use that data to make informed decisions. So I think predictive analytics based on historical data is going to be, it is now, but it's going to become more and more and more essential. It's going to be an essential skill for HR practitioners. It's going to be an essential skill for finance folk. They kind of have this already in terms of numbers. But we spoke earlier about chat being text-based, and it can analyze, summarize, and present information from thousands and thousands of document sources. You can now turn this into voice as well. My son's been prattling around with these technologies. He created an interview scenario, and you can vary the level of the job that this would apply to, but it was voice based, and the answers that the candidate gave were interrogated, interpreted, and represented back, and it led the questions in real time. Slight delay, half a second, so you could half tell that you were talking to a robot. But then you could switch that into any language. He did it in Spanish, he did it in German, from a base set of information that he had captured in this interview that he built. So that kind of experience is going to become more and more popular, more and more prevalent as well. And also, I think, individual context. So we talk about Gen Y, Gen Z, and they behave like X, and they behave like Y, or they do these things. That's too blunt. What technology will be able to do, in my view, and you see this now with the ERPs that we talk about, they get very precise and tailored more to you as an individual based on information they know about you, based on some predictions, etc. But it becomes finer and finer. So rather than say Gen Z individuals like to behave in this manner, you can say that Lloyd likes to behave in this manner, Ryan likes to behave in that manner, Stephen likes this kind of thing, and it becomes much more tailored. I see that becoming, it's already in the realms of Amazon or Deliveroo or LinkedIn. It is pointed to you because it knows what you like, and you see that. I mean, we've all had this experience, right? You're talking to your partner about buying fishing rods, and all of a sudden, bing, 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 adverts of fishing rods.
Talking to my partner about buying fishing rods.
Whatever you talk to your partner about.
I definitely don't talk about buying
talking to your partner about cat food, right? All of a sudden, adverts for cat food, and I see that conceptual model becoming embedded more in our HR technologies and our finance technologies, procurement, legal, the whole show.
Interesting. I remember about 15, between 10 and 15 years ago, I went to see a Big Four customer, very, very heavily on the tech side. And they told me that they was working on a project for a retail company or the retail industry that would scan your buying habits and would let you know when you're near a certain chain of that store and automatically ping your mobile phone with the best offers based on your spending habits from other stores of what was available at that store. Now, I've not seen that. I've not opened my eyes to that, to be honest.
It's there. A couple of my clients' divisions are in that business, and that's highly, highly valuable. If you think of the margin on, you can identify people of this social profile in this area. We've been able to do that for years, right? People that like to watch Good Morning Britain and that are aged 35 to 40 and that live in Clapham, you can do that. They've been able to do that for years.
Yeah.
But now you can, if you overlay to that their buying habits, and actually, even more precisely, the last time they bought, let's say it's milk, the last time they bought milk, and so they know that they're likely going to be out of milk, you can target to that individual. They can do that already. And it's kind of creepy, but it's also highly effective in terms of efficient use of your time and efficient targeting to you.
Do you know, it's funny. It's funny this comes up, right? Because I was only talking to a friend of mine. I actually used to play football with him many, many years ago. I was on the train on the way in, and he just started a business. So we just started talking business and stuff like that. And we were talking about the value that you get from having a business or being relatively successful. And I said that I have some nice watches now, thank God.
So you do?
Well, this one, you'll see where I'm going with this, right? I have some nice watches. And the one that I like the most is my Apple Watch. Got all these very expensive, a few really nice expensive watches, but I wear the Apple Watch. You know why? Because it makes me a better person. Because it tracks everything about my body. It will tell me things that I don't know about what's going on around me, and therefore I wear my Apple Watch, and that's a couple £100.
But it's personalised, isn't it?
It's personalised, yeah. And I've kind of like grown into this person. I don't want my life to be easy, so that's not what I'm saying. But I want things to make my life easier. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that sort of technology makes my life easier. Yeah. Because I don't want to go online and have a look at, what shorts and tracksuits and that's what I wear when I'm not at work. Tracksuits and shorts and things like that. I don't want to go online and look at that. I want something to tell me that. And I just want to click the button because it's already picked up the size because it knows my spending habits from before. I just want to click a button and go, yeah, I'll have that, and that's it. And I want it to come to my house the following day so I can wear it. And I think that's where we're going, right? If it's not already there.
The big leap is the banks in Canary Wharf. We could identify when a sales leader was likely to start to look for another job. There was a pattern of data that we were able to analyse. But that was trend analysis and it was backward looking. The value, I think, of where we're at now is predictive. So, yes, part of that knowledge base that the predictive analytics will look at is your previous behaviours. But it also brings in environmental factors like the economy, cost of living, inflation, health alerts, etc. It can overlay macro dynamics into the decision making as well as your personal history, so that makes it very, very potent because it has access to unlimited amounts of data. Right?
Yeah. So this thing that's on my finger here, it's called an Aura ring, and it tracks all of my sleep and the deep sleep and the REMs and everything like that. And I was with I'd done a podcast a couple of weeks ago with one of the senior members of the leadership team at one of the vendors, and I brought up the fact that the only thing that I can't see right now that any of the ERP providers are doing is they're doing everything else. They're making their employees get paid quicker. So there's a system out there now which is Ceridian Dayforce where you can just click a button and then it's really good. Within a few seconds, the money that you've already earned in the month is already in your account. That's brilliant, right? Not many of the vendors are doing that. But what I think they are missing, and if any of them do this idea is copywritten, and I will look for my royalties. None of them are tracking their employees' health. Their employees' health. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You've got all these things that help you in the Apple Watch or in the Samsung and whatever else. How about feeding that into the product? And you would have to sign to say you're okay with that, right? I get that. But if that happened to me, I would want my ERP system telling me, Lloyd, you really should not be doing this today. And it doesn't. But you've got all the tools around you that will tell you. So if I look at my app now, it will say to me, take it easy today, take it easy.
Right.
You know, that's what it said to me this morning.
Okay.
Take it easy. What about an ERP doing that though? And informing your manager. Because if I've say for example you're my manager, you care about me, right?
I do.
As well, I know you do. I know you do. I care about you too. But say for example, like my employees, I really care about these people, right? And as long as they show me that they will walk through fire for me, I will walk through fire for them twice. So if they're not fit for work, I don't want them to come in that way. Do you know what I mean? I don't even want you working at home. You know, I want you to go and have a massage, which I'll pay for, right? Because I care about you. Don't get any ideas. Ryan's writing down massage. Yeah. No, I'm deadly serious. Okay. This is really important. And the tools that we have that look after your mindset and your body and everything like that, none of them are connected to the ERP systems. Why?
You're treading into ethical questions here, though, aren't you? So many organisations I'll go into, they have posters up on the wall, we're your family. Well, you're not my family, right? You're somewhere where I go to work and I'll come up and I'll do a good job. Not everybody's keen on that.
If you're not, you don't have to agree to it.
Well, quite. So that's where the ethical question comes in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whether you're comfortable with that or you're not.
Yeah. See, I would be.
Yeah.
If I was working for an organisation...
I'd struggle with that.
Right, okay. So therefore, then you would opt out from that, but I would opt in. Because my manager tells me that he or she cares about my mental health and, you know, whatever else. So therefore, we have this system that does everything else for me. It should tell my manager that actually I've come in today and I really should not be in today.
Tells you two
so
things.
I'm
it also tells them they're
underperforming.
highly committed to come in when they are feeling under the weather too.
Well, yes, but then you'd have a graph, right?
Yeah.
You'd have a graph within the ERP system that tells my manager this is red, because I'm okay coming in when I'm amber, right?
Yeah.
But when I come in when I'm red, I need to do something about that. Otherwise, it will continue and it will blow up. And I would love to have that for my employees. Do you know what I mean? And
it sounds to me like that's focus on health, right?
Focus on health apps.
Yeah.
We could have that together and we could sell it all over the world. And,
I'm with you.
Know.
I'm with you.
Anyway, so last question before we close off, because this has been absolutely amazing, and I hope everyone that views this has enjoyed it as much as I have. You're obviously a very successful individual, and you've been doing this for 25 years, right? So from a financial point of view, I'm going to take a guess that you probably don't need to do this now.
From a financial point of view, no, I don't.
Right.
And I haven't for some time.
Right. So there's something else that's motivating you to do it.
That's not the driver. Yeah, that's absolutely not the driver.
So what is the driver?
So I don't ever see myself retiring, right? I might do less. I might do a gig that's 5 days a week or 6 days a week for 3 months, or I might do a gig that's 2 days a week for a year. That's how I see my future. But I'm not ready for that yet, right? I've still got fire in my belly to smash a couple more big ones out of the park as well. I really want to do that, and I will. People need to have purpose, and whether that purpose is a hobby, so people retire and they go sailing, or they do their garden, or they walk their dogs, or they do yoga or whatever. It's a purpose, and people need to have that. My purpose is still getting involved in conversations like this, helping organisations to get more efficient. And what we spoke about earlier is I think I've got a little bit of a responsibility to share my experience, mentor some people. There's a couple of my friends that, we kind of have a tacit mentoring aspect to our friendship, and I think that's my responsibility to share the experiences that I've had. Not to say that I'm going to be right, but it's a perspective that they can't have because they haven't done it. They haven't been through that mill that I have in the number of times that I have. So a few more years of hitting it hard, but then I won't stop. I'll probably just do a little bit less.
Yeah. One of my customers actually gave me a really good idea. He said to me the other day, there's a in the age range in the workforce, there's let's say a senior workforce that has an amazing set of abilities, and typically organisations don't want to hire that senior set of individuals because they don't see them as being in the organisation for a long time or whatever reason they've decided. So he said to me, why don't you set up a recruitment company that just focuses on those individuals and helps companies to almost backfill those attributes that they are missing in their workforce,
right? Because
they can with, let's say, the 60-year-olds, and I know you're not in that realm yet, but they have a skill set that, let's say, the 40s and the 30s and the 20s are lacking, and it's just sitting there, but no one used us.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's a really good idea.
The big bank that I started with, I mentioned earlier on, they had a concept of a role, managing director, senior advisor. So that role was 4 or 5 days a month, very well paid, but these are senior individuals. I mean, one was the former Prime Minister they hired for network understanding of oil and gas industry, which was his speciality, did a little before he became PM. Highly successful and very valuable to the organisation as well. And you come with a very valuable, potent black book of contacts too, and network. That's gold dust, I think, to some organisations.
100%. Yeah, we've just gone through the same situation with our chairman.
All right, yeah. I remember actually, yes.
With a heavy. Our previous chairman is retired now, so the guy that you met before, Walid Suki, bless him, saw him for shooting the other day actually.
That's what the chairman should be doing.
Well, he's the ex-chairman. He's retired now, right? So I took him shooting actually. I was going to say he took me shooting, but that was a few weeks before. But we've got a new chairman now, and our chairman now is the ex-CEO of Alexander Mann. Okay. And we've been through the last few weeks. We've been through some rocky times, not from a financial perspective, but from an organisational perspective. Yeah. And having him, and he's in his mid-60s. He doesn't look it, and his energy is right up there as well. And having him there, I really don't know what we would have done through that without having him there. Yeah. And it just shows you that absolutely priceless. So, yes, long may it continue, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And it's great we've worked together a few years now. Great to see Focus in its various incarnations going from strength to strength, and that's down to you and your team, right?
So long may it continue.
Well done, yeah. Long may it continue indeed.
It's placement just going off in the background there, so everyone's probably on the tables. We obviously can't see that at the moment, but
another sale, well
another placement. No, the guys are doing really, really well, and as you know, I'm building to be able to move aside now. So I'm in that later stage. Because of a promise that I made my kids and my wife, right? And I'm not going to break that promise no matter what. So, at the moment we're just designing how this thing is going to look when I'm not around. And that sounds very morbid, doesn't it? When I'm not around, because I will be around, hopefully, but not in the position I'm in now. So
fantastic.
Hopefully a chairman.
Best of luck with that.
Hopefully the new chairman.
Brilliant.
Have to grow my beard a little bit more, get the greys out, But yeah. So look, Stephen, I really appreciate you coming in. I hope everyone's enjoyed the podcast today. If you do like this, make sure you put a like on it and subscribe to the Focus Cloud group channel. And we've got plenty more coming for you.